So we talked about this yesterday, and I gave this man love. Brad Behrman from FANSIDED, he always has a spicy take, whether it's anti-Jared Goff, and I truly believe that there's something going on as to what – I know it's just like genuinely people who don't like Jared Goff. They just don't, and we can talk about him forever. But I assure you this, Jared Goff is a hot commodity right now. There's got to be at least a third of the league calling the Detroit Lions to acquire Jared Goff. I promise you that, even with that hefty contract. Because as Brad Holmes said in his press conference, he thinks it's easier to get worse at quarterback than better. And Jared Goff is a solid quarterback. So let's give him his props. But Brad Behrman doesn't particularly like Jared Goff. And you can just tell from the content that he produces. But according to FANSIDED, which I said before, I love this fan site. Love it. 3 bold moves to put the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl next season. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that it is outlandish to talk Detroit Lions and Super Bowl in the same sentence. I really don't. All they need to do is make it to the playoffs. But what do we need to do? We need to fix our defense. That's beyond a shadow of a doubt. We're not going to get there with the defense we have. That's facts. We might have made it to the playoffs. We're not going to get to the Super Bowl with that type of defense. You can't win the Super Bowl with the 32-ranked defense because the 31-ranked defense will probably beat you if they made it, right? Which they won't either. But we have to solidify our defense. It's got to get better. But the reason I brought up Jared Goff and Brad Behrman is because the number one thing that he suggests is acquire Lamar Jackson. Now, we've been over this several times. I'm not going to elaborate. I'm not going to elaborate on this because I don't want to. We already know that he is not going to be a Detroit Lion. John Harbaugh, already said that he's 200% sure that he is going to re-sign and be their quarterback in 2023. Louis Riddick came out 2 days ago. People are still talking about the Detroit Lions a week and a half after our season ended. Louis Riddick tweeted 2 days ago, Lions are going to the playoffs in 2023 and going to be a real contender for the trophy when they do. That is fantastic. I didn't see this tweet till right now. But these are the other 2 bold moves that the Detroit Lions could do to get to a Super Bowl. I want you to tell me what you think. And it's funny because we've already talked about these. Move number 3, trade for Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey is another guy that for some reason, maybe it's the Brad Holmes, LA Rams connection, that he just keeps coming up. He keeps coming up when you talk about the Detroit Lions. The 28-year-old has 3 years left on his contract at base salaries of $17 million in 2023, $14.5 million in 2024, and $15.5 million in 2025. Which means that if the Detroit Lions traded for him this year, he would be on a team for at least 3 seasons. With dates each year where either a chunk of salary, 2023, or a $4 million roster bonus, 2024 and 2025, comes due. That's via over the cap. The Rams would retain the cap implications attached to Ramsey's prorated signing bonus. But a post-June 1st trade would clear $17 million in cap space for this year. Chat, do you want Jalen Ramsey on this team? What would you be willing for Jalen Ramsey? And the only reason I'm entertaining it is because they just will not let this thing go. I've seen on Twitter, I've seen a lot of places that his name keeps coming back up. I don't believe that that is a viable solution. Would I mind Jalen Ramsey? I don't think he fits this team. But my thing is, you have the money, right, that he is going to require, and you have the assets. Don't forget the Jacksonville Jaguars received 2 first-round picks for Jalen Ramsey. You're not going to get that now. You might get one because he's still playing at a high level. The team had a bad year, but Jalen Ramsey at 28 years old is still playing at a high level. I just don't think that Jalen Ramsey fits this team. Now, when I made the video about that, I got a lot of pushback in the comments saying, I disagree with you about fitting the team and all of this stuff. Jalen Ramsey, from a financial aspect, is a tough sell. From a compensation aspect, when it comes to assets, is a tough sale. Would he make this team better? Of course he would. But I'm going to put Jalen Ramsey in the same category that I put DK Metcalf. Would be great for this team to have from a talent standpoint, but I just don't think they fit on the team. So Jalen Ramsey coming to the Detroit Lions, and this is very high speak of this young man. Super Bowl contenders by making Jalen Ramsey a trade for Jalen Ramsey. And like Patty says, we are not one player away. We're a defense away. That's facts. That's facts. So I'm going to disagree with that one. Number 2, sign Tony Pollard. Again, people we've already talked about. Tony Pollard will be a free agent this year. He had over 1,000 yards, and we just talked about him in yesterday's segment, right? He averaged 5.2 yards in the 2022 season, and they're still playing. They are still playing. I'll tell you what. As far as making it to the Super Bowl, I disagree with this tremendously. Like, this is not Tony Pollard. And it's funny that we had a defense and an offense, but our offense is solid. Our offense is solid. The only way I could see a Tony Pollard coming in is if Jamal doesn't re-sign. And I think that Jamal Williams is here. Nick says, I give a second-round pick and a third-round pick next year. For Jalen Ramsey, I assume you're talking about. Well, the Rams, you know what? I'm not sure what the Rams would do because the Rams have sold their soul year after year after year, and they finally got what they were shooting for last year. The Rams, then they tried to give up 2 first-round picks with, what is his name? Brian Burns. So, obviously, but they're in such a rebuild, kind of, that Sean McVay was talking about retiring because he didn't want to face the adversity. So when it comes to Tony Pollard, I don't see the Detroit Lions signing a running back unless we get word that Jamal is not coming back. Then I could see it being between him and Josh Jacobs. But people are very high. And let me ask you this. We talked about this a couple days ago. There's been a lot of talk. There's one name that keeps coming up since we're on the subject of running back. I am of the mindset that we need a defense. I have of the mindset that we use our 2 first-round picks on defense. But people are kind of on this Bijan Robinson thing at 18. That maybe we take a DT or a cornerback at 6, and then with our pick, we take Robinson. How would you feel on that, about that? I don't know. Some people are saying that he's the equivalent to Saquon Barkley. So there it is. Nick says, if Jamal isn't coming back, I'm drafting Bijan. Okay. Here's where I'm at with that. Our defense has to be solid. KD says no, just no. Here's the good and the bad. As a matter of fact, I might make a video about that later today. The good is our defense. The bad is our defense sucks. Our defense sucks. Okay? So we need to get that. We need to get that taken care of. That's the bad. The good, though, and why I would entertain that, right? And it's seeming more and more likely if Jamal Williams doesn't sign. And even if he does, that's a hard sell with the way our defense. If our defense was ranked top 10 or 15, I would say sure, do it. But if that was the case, we would be in the playoffs by now. But the thing about that is DeAndre Swift is ending. He will be on his last year. And this is why the Bijan thing is intriguing, because Jamal Williams will probably get a 2-year deal. DeAndre Swift is entering his last year, which means that in 2024, we can have no running back. And if Robinson was there and is there and could take us for the next 5 years, that is a move that you could make 100%. So let me know what you think about this. Do you think any of these moves, even though Lamar Jackson is 200% to be back in Baltimore, do you believe that Jalen Ramsey, Lamar Jackson, or Tony Pollard would make us Super Bowl contenders next year?